This is Black Market Leadership, the underground resource for disruptors and status quo breakers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Black Market Leadership. Happy Halloween. That's right. It is Halloween, in my opinion, the greatest day of the year. And for those of you looking on YouTube right now, I am not dressed as an aging metalhead. This is my normal attire. I wanted to do something special today. You know, I've had a lot of discussions recently about my book. I've been writing this book for some time now, and everyone's usually interested in the topic and really the process. You know, what's it take to write a book? What's all involved? I know there's a lot of mystery and intrigue into it, and I figured let's talk about it. But I think there's a certain irony that my book is about chaos, and I'm calling this podcast Chaos in Chaos. I'm experiencing at certain times the very thing I'm writing about. It is a very, very interesting process, and I'm going to walk you through it. So that's the topic of this podcast today. So my goal is this, just to enlighten you what it takes to write. Now, I am not published, but I do have an agent. I have 90,000 words. I'm finishing up my first manuscript. It should be finished in a couple of months. And by the way, if you had asked me 9 months ago, how long until you get your manuscript down? A couple of weeks, no problem. It takes a little bit of time, but I'm going to walk you through that. But if you're interested in writing a book, if you just want to know about the process, I'm going to highlight some things I've learned, and even give you some of the some steps and practices that I use to write. So maybe you got a book in your head and you want to get that thing out. Hopefully this can be of value to you. Okay. So before I go into the book, you need to understand who I am and why I'm even going down this path. So you would probably call me a management consultant. That would be the term of the industry I fall in. I do leadership development. I'm a strategic advisor. I usually work with senior executives, help them create strategy, help develop their teams. I run special leadership workshops, which are experiential using computer wargaming. So I'm about new things. And really what I've learned is over the years, I'm about experience. I really am about living in chaos. I like the new challenges, overcoming obstacles. And it's funny, as I write, I'm realizing, boy, this is my whole life has been going down this path. I've always been around change, real drastic change. And so it makes sense. The very topic I'm writing is almost, I won't say it's heartfelt, but I really understand it. I'm actually interested in it. That's the thing. I'm actually want to write about this topic because I've lived it and I've experienced it. So my background, leadership, strategy, and by the way, when I talk about strategy, I'm usually an advocate of what they call the emergent strategy, and that's a type of strategy where it's, some people will call it make it up as you go. I don't think that's fair, but it's almost it's very different from creating a very linear path. A lot of people, when they make a strategy or a plan, it's a one lane road. It's very linear. It goes A, B, C, and D, and E. Well, as we all know, things change. Things change in the world, and you have to improvise. You have to, sometimes you got to skip B and go right to C or D. So instead of having this single linear path, I'm about creating a general highway, a 12-lane highway, and it's heading toward a general destination. But you have to be able to maneuver, to go left, to go right, to skip over a task or an objective if possible, if necessary. So it really requires you thinking on your feet. And you could probably guess that what follows this chaos, right? So everything I've done in my background has led to this point of this book. Now, this book, I can tell you I've been writing this book, which is now in its third transition. Yes, it has gone through 3 transitions. I don't mean revisions, I mean transition. When I first started this, I knew I liked the idea of improvisation. I liked the idea of making up as you go and that whole emergent strategy. So I realized, well, there's a real story here, emergent leadership. Okay, emergent leadership. Now, there's a challenge there. There's a term called emerging leaders, and that's so used up today. And frankly, when I was talking to people about emergent leadership, they thought I was talking about emerging leaders. And, when you work in this industry, the leadership industry is enormous. It's saturated. If you spent 1 minute of your life in a leadership position, you could technically become a leadership management consultant, I should say, or a leadership consultant. So there's a lot of voices, a lot of ideas, and emerging leadership is just a thing it's been out there, it's tried, and frankly, it's pretty old stuff. So when I was talking about emergent leadership, I find that people got confused. So, and something else happened as well, too. As I was talking about it, I was like, well, I kind of like the emergent strategy, but man, it's so vague. That's really not me. Like I said, I like that highway, not necessarily just completely improvising everywhere you go. So I realized that the emergent strategy or emergent leadership really wasn't what I wanted to talk about, but I didn't know. So after about a year and a half of writing, and I say writing, I was literally sitting down, writing about, the two types of strategy, the importance of leadership and the importance of improvisation. In fact, I sat down with a gentleman, Nick Tantillo, and I did sat down for 5 Saturdays for 1-hour podcasts. I got all that video. I got all that video from him, and I got transcribed, and I think it was like 40 or 50,000 words. So right there, that technically could be a book. And for people out there interested in the numbers, my understanding is a normal fiction book, the average size is 60,000 words. A business book, I've heard it could be between 30 to 60, sometimes 45,000. It's almost half the size of a fiction novel. So with 50,000 words from this transcription, I have a book, right? Well, no, I just wasn't happy because I didn't know what I was writing about. So this leads to the second transition. I decided, you know what? Why am I beating my head into the wall with this thing? It's killing me. It's stressful. I'm writing, and I feel like I'm going nowhere. So I took a chapter out of that book about behaviors in leadership, how certain people react to emergent conditions, uncertainty. Saying, you see where this trajectory is going, right? Or how where this whole theme is heading. I wanted to write about behaviors, so I took a chapter out and then buffed it up. I think a chapter was 5,000 words. I think I took it to 20 to 25,000 because I really went to depth. And what I was going to do is just publish a 20 or 30,000 page book, 20 to 30,000 word book, which could be I think it's 75 to 120 pages, something like that. It depends how you edit it. Now, some of you out there might be saying, can you publish something that small? Absolutely. Oh yeah. There are a lot of people out there who will publish a 30-page book. And this is something you got to remember. Anytime you publish, you could publish by yourself. You can go on Amazon. You could publish your own PDF. If you publish a 20-page book with your name on it, and you can do all the administrative work that goes with it to register that book, you are an author. So that's something to remember. But I wasn't interested in that. Even though I wanted the behaviors, I knew I had something here, but again, I wasn't happy. I was like, man, I'm getting close. I'm getting close to my end target, but this is not what I want to talk about. I mean, again, behaviors. Oh God, the whole behaviors, that's a $2 billion industry. There are tools, there are an abundance of tools out there. And frankly, if I write about behaviors, I will be seen as a salesperson, as a vendor. And that's not what I do. The behaviors are a tool in my practice, but I do not want to be associated as a vendor because that lowers your, that lowers your brand, in my opinion, or I should say this, it diminishes what you could be doing. Strategic advisors get bigger contracts than vendors do, than just simple vendors. As a sole entrepreneur. Okay. So I have book 2, I think, but I'm not happy. And then I for some reason, chaos came up, the term. And I started thinking like, wow, chaos, there's something there. So I started thinking about it, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is my book. I have a book about chaos. And originally the title was going to be Managing Chaos. And then I talked to a couple of people, I'm like, oh, this sounds too corporate. So I had to figure out something else. Now, this whole time, we're probably 3.5 years in this whole writing experience. I know it's chaos, and I come up with the title, my working title now, which is Strength in Chaos. And I have integrated some of my work for the Emergent Leadership book. I've integrated all the stuff from my behaviors. But the challenge is now I have to write about chaos. And first of all, I got to know, has someone else done this? I don't remember the quote exactly, but there's a quote by Ayn Rand, one of my favorite writers, probably my favorite philosopher, next to Aristotle. And she made a point about writing that only write things which are new. Don't repeat what other people are saying. And so that's a big thing. I want to make sure that if I wrote about chaos, that there really isn't, there's almost like an opening, a demand, I should say. And there is a book out there called Thriving in Chaos. I have it here, and that was in the 80s, but that's really the only one that I have found that deals with business. But that book I tried to read it. It just seemed like an instruction manual. But I did not find any books about leadership in chaos. So I was like, oh my gosh, not only do I feel good about the topic and I'm really confident in the theme, but there's a need. And this is big. This is the big part about writing is it's a business. One of my favorite quotes at all time comes from James Brown. And the quote is, it's not show business, it's show and business. And I'd like you to think about that. I know for those of you who've listened to the show before, I've said that quote several times, but it's blending the creative side with the business side. So that to me is extraordinarily important. If I'm going to write a book, I'm not interested. I'm not writing a book for a million people. I'm writing a book for a certain type of audience, and there has to be a need for it. So given the opening with chaos, I was like, man, I think I'm right on. And I just got to tell you, though, the one thing I've realized as I've gone through this process is you need time to think. You really have to sit, stand, walk around, and reflect. You have to let your subconscious formulate. You got to really focus. What is the problem? What is the solution? What is the thing I am trying to solve? And it takes time. You think about it. And that's what's happened over the past 3 years, even 4 years, really. As I've watched movies and I've done my reading and I've talked, I've worked with clients, I'm seeing aspects of chaos everywhere. I just didn't know it at the time. But now I'm consciously looking for it. So technically, I think you say maybe technically speaking, I have gathered all this experience and now my mind is focused. It's a flashlight and I'm seeing the evidence around. And what happens is every day and even at night when I sleep, I'm integrating all that knowledge, all that experiences into the theme. So what's happening is not only am I building a case for the book or hopefully some really good content. Well, I know it's good content. I mean, I've had conversations and people are actually enjoying it, but I believe in it. And that's the thing. I want to write something that I believe in. And as Ayn Rand once said, write something unique. So this is why I'm really, really focusing on this book. This is what's really changing how I do business. I'm really focusing a lot on this because one of the big questions you're going to have to ask yourself is, if you want to write a book, why? Why do you want to write a book? Some people, and again, no right or wrong answer. It all depends on what you want to do. But some people just want to, become an authority. You get a book with your name on it. People associate you with that subject. You're an authority now. Fine. Some people will write books to boost that resume, that CV, really to open more options of being hired. You become an authority, a subject matter expert, and your name's out there. There are companies or organizations out there that will pay big bucks to get you, and so it could open new doors. In my case, though, as a consultant, as an executive coach, what a book can do is it really changed my whole business model. Because right now, the kind of work I have to go out and push. It's push or pull with your clients or potential clients. You got to push your name out there. You got to introduce yourself, blah, 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 blah. With a book, your name code gets out there. It is the best marketing. And in fact, I think Henry DeVries said a book is your best marketing strategy. The book puts you out there as an authority. And if you have something to say, this is your brand. And what happens is people now come to you. It makes life a lot more easier. So that's what I'm really excited about this book. This is why I'm really excited, because one, I have really good content. I know I do. I validate it because I've had a lot of discussions with people about it, and they're interested. And that's a big key. If people are interested and they don't walk away, that's a good sign in my book. The other is there's an opening, there's a need, there's not a lot on this particular topic. And most of all, though, this is a business move. It absolutely is. This could change my model. I do a lot of one-on-one consulting. A book could really open doors. So that's why I think it is, in my particular case, it's not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity. It has to be done. And the fact is that I've learned over the years, when you're a sole entrepreneur, you're CEO, chief everything officer. But what I've really learned in my career is that I'm really good at developing. I love developing. But if I have to do the marketing and the sales as well, I can do it. I really don't want to. I have to. But that's not where my strengths lie. So this book will really, really allow me to leverage my strengths and better help my clients. So that really is a great value in it. So let me ask you this. I'm sure some of you are thinking right now, you're listening about that background, the trials and tribulations, as I might say. What about for you? Is a book for you? Would it help you, open new doors of business? Could it open new options for you? I just want to tell you though, writing, man, it really depends. It really depends. I have developed certain ways, certain processes of how to write. Writing can be either the greatest thing in the world, or it is pulling your hair out. But I would tell you this though, it is extraordinary, intellectually rewarding, because what happens is you think you know a topic, write about it. And I bet you money, you will open up new avenues, new ways of seeing things. You're like, oh my God, I never considered that. So in a sense, it's almost like preparing for an argument. You got your argument, but you're looking at every single angle about it. And that just helps you deepen your confidence in it. And that in itself helps you write, will help you put that material out there. Yeah, so the intellectual rewards is great, new way of doing business. And frankly, it's exciting. I tell you that, it's exciting. So those, in my case, are the rewards. And I ask, what would the rewards for you be? What would the business aspect be? Would it help you just, some people want to write just to write. Yeah, so there are a lot of reasons. Now, there are some challenges. Let me go into the challenges. So I'm telling you this not to dissuade you, but I just want you to understand this is what lies ahead. Now, I've asked you before to consider the goal. What would the goal or purpose of writing a book for you be? You have to do this. If you do not identify your goal, you're going to go in circles, because I'll give an example. That your goal is really going to shape or influence the type of book, the size of the book, the quality of the book. There are some people out there who I know who've done, PowerPoint presentations. They've done like 5 or 6, and what they've done is they take that material and they just collated it and put it into a book. Okay, so since the book is just, look, it's their voice, it's their information. Good. They're an authority because their name's out there. There's some people who do, either in leadership or management, they rebrand. Leadership is pretty delimited. It's not rocket science. There are certain things you really have to know. So there are certain people out there who just rebrand. They'll put a new brand on a method or a practice. And I think that requires a little bit more innovation. And then I think there are other books out there, other authors who are very innovative. They're creating something new. And that, I think I'm in that, because again, there's not a lot of competition. So For me, because I've told you my goals, the challenge is it's intense because I'm always thinking to myself, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Now, what I have to remind myself is I think the average American in this country reads one book a year. So, who am I writing for? And that's another thing, your challenge. Not only do you have to be confident in your material and know who you are writing to, but you really, I think, you need to know the borders and the limits. Are you writing a book for academics who are just who by nature is going to pluck it apart? Are you writing for your next door neighbor? Are you writing for the young emerging leader? Someone out there who could follow in your steps and you could support? You really, really need to identify all this. And I tell you, you think you know it, but when you sit down and you start writing, and again, writing takes practice. You really start clarifying, man, maybe I'm really not writing to this group. Maybe I'm really writing to this other group, similar, but not the same. So just those things themselves will linger if you do not clearly identify them. That will be a challenge if you do not clearly identify who your reader is and your expectations. Another thing you have to remember is you don't know what you don't know. Okay. That is a hard lesson because again, though, I would tell you, there's been a couple of times I've been writing this. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm missing something or I'm missing a term or there's something here. Someone else has had to write about it. For instance, in one of my levels of chaos, I talk about a thing called forward integration. And what that is, it's just the integration of strategy, systems, and structure. All three have to go together because, basically it's direction and order. It's what you get with those two, and they complement. You can't just have one without the other. Well, I found out a couple months ago that there had been a PhD back in the 60s wrote a book called Strategy and Structure. The very thing I've been writing about, this guy wrote about. So I'm like, oh God, man, this is good. God, I wish I had known this, but I didn't. I did not read the book. I think his name's Alfred something. I didn't read the book, but I did my best not to beat myself up. You just got to keep moving on. You got to write with what you know, and that's fine. No one expects you to be an encyclopedia. I am not a business academic. I've read business books. I've read leadership books. I've read military books. So I'm applying my knowledge, my limited knowledge to the subject. The other thing is that you have to realize is that, let's say you have your book, you have the problem that you want to solve. You know why you're the one who can solve it. And you have a process. When you start writing, and by the way, you got to create an outline, and I mean a real outline, not like just a one point or one PowerPoint page, a real multi-page outline. One thing that I have discovered, which has been an enormous challenge, some might call it a complete headache, is that there is an evolution. There's an absolute evolution in your in the thesis, in the topic, because again, you don't know what you don't know. I was writing about, I'll give an example. One of the biggest challenges about chaos is that it's subjective. It really is. I give an example. Imagine you're in a coffee shop and, in the kitchen, one of the stoves catches fire and, the walls go in flames. People in that coffee shop, there will be some people who are going to run out with, screaming bloody murder. Oh my God, we're going to die. It's horrific. They're going to have some other people, some old dude, some old gallon dude who are all crusty, like, calm down, or, orderly, out the door this way. People perceive the same thing differently. And what this means is they all perceive the loss of control differently. So the thing about chaos is it's very subjective and there's really not a lot of objectivity to it. Well, what I've done is I've created a chaos model, an actual model of how to measure it. I actually have 4 different levels, and I describe what it is, how they're all linked, specific outcomes that you can see. So I got this chaos model. And then one day I'm writing, I'm like, well, I got my title, Strength and Chaos. I got a chaos model, but what the hell is strength? And then, son of a bitch, wouldn't you know it, a strength model came out of it, a strength scale next to my chaos scale. They're completely linked. And then the next day, maybe the next week, as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, well, what's the common denominator? I'm like, well, it's control. I mean, chaos really is the perception of losing control. Well, there's got to be a control scale. And I'm at my office, galvanized, these beautiful whiteboard tables, and I drill the stuff on there. I was walking in circles, and I'm like, epiphany, eureka. I was like, it's all connected. I drew out my little triangle. I'm like, holy shit, they're all connected. They're all connected. So what I was writing 6 months ago has evolved. I have not changed the essence of my content. I've elaborated on it. And in doing that, it's actually grown and expanded. But here's another challenge. It's expanding. And the more it expands, you have to put the borders on it, because if not, if I don't stop this, it'll get bigger and bigger and go to everything. So how do you do this? How do you control this growth, this constant evolution? Because again, I think I know chaos. I got this chaos scale, and I realized, wow, there's a supplementary scale called the strength scale. How to get to that? And then the driving force is my control scale. So the point is, you could probably guess I was pulling my hair out for every day. I would sit there and think about it. I'd lay at bed at night. Something pop in my head, pull up the phone, send an email to myself. Oh, level 2, add this. Level 3, add this. Level 4, difference between level 3 and 4. Boom, boom, boom. And what happens is I email myself messages every night with notes. And the next day when I write, or when I'm preparing to write, how I start my process is I go to my email, I take out those notes, I collect them all together in one document, and I go from there. Sometimes I edit, sometimes I create new material. I plug and play. So those are some of the big challenges. But I would tell you the one more thing that you have to remember writing, and this is really for anything. I mean, especially articles, blogs. You have to write for value. You have to write to give the reader something. They have to leave saying, I learned this and I can use it this way. That right there is a big, big point. There are some writers out there who I've seen and I've met. I've read some. I mean, I try to read some if I can. Who they're just talking. They're talking, and it's almost academic. The readers, and from what I'm doing, and I'm guessing probably what you're doing, they want to get something out of it. They have to walk away something out of it. Here's the challenge, though. If you write it too practical, again, this is my bias, but if you write it way too practical, it's going to read like a business book, which, some are good, some are like, this is just typical boilerplate. It's boring. So you got to find that medium. How can you do a little bit of storytelling, but how can you have a lesson, something that they can really walk away from? So I think those really are some of the major challenges that I faced writing this. I want to give you a couple more elements for this podcast about writing. Again, from my journey. How do you know how to write? One is, you got to look at your resources. You need to learn how to, first of all, you need content, you need resources to develop your content, and you need resources to help develop your style. Everyone's going to develop their style, but again, that takes practice. But I would tell you, I have some books here that I'm going to recommend that you read. Let's start with style first. And it's the art of writing, I should say. This is all about the art of writing. If you had not read this, you should. Stephen King's On Writing. I got it on Audible. A fantastic book. Audible is really good too, because he talks to you. But this book On Writing really is about developing your style, how to organize. How to organize. The one thing I'll just remember about Stephen King's On Writing, he has a sentence, or he has a lesson there that, he runs. That's a sentence, people. He runs. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be all flowery and totally descriptive, or it could be, depends on who you are. But how you speak will be reflected in your writing. But just realize, you can mix it up. But again, you got to kind of know the craft a little bit. So on writing, I highly recommend it. The Art of Nonfiction by Ayn Rand, great book, especially about organization and getting to the point. A fantastic book, highly recommended. So far, Stephen King's On Writing and The Art of Nonfiction by Ayn Rand. If you want to write fiction, she's got The Art of Fiction. A good friend of mine has read it several times. He thinks it's life-changing. There's some other books too that if you want to write, you gotta read. There's one book I really enjoyed, and not just for the lessons, but for the style. It is called Spy the Lie: Former CIA Officers Teach You How to Detect Deception. And it's by three polygraphers. I don't know how you say that. Three of them. And the book, I swear to God, it's like, 150 pages? People, it is so crisp, so clean. There's so much substance and content, and it is so easy to read. I read that and I was like, that's how I want to write. Now, just to let you know, for those of you who don't know this, people in the CIA apparently are known for their brevity, for their writing, getting to the point. So I'm not sure if they take special classes. I'd like to sure they'll take one. But I really recommend it. To me, it is a fantastic way of writing, of getting really good substance, good quality into very succinct, simple messaging. The War of Art. Oh, Stephen Pressfield. Oh my God, The War of Art. This is a motivational book. I call it a big kick in the nuts. It is a great book. Do the work. This is the book that if you're a creative and you want to write, you want to do something creative with your life, this is a extraordinarily motivational book, but it's not flowery. As I said, it has a big kick to it. It is a fantastic book. And I would tell you, it's a very private book. I got mine. I marked it all up. I won't let anybody look at it. It's mine. It's almost like a private diary I've given out for as presents. So I really recommend The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. So those books right there, those are just some books you could read. I found an online PDF by a guy named Major Matt Kavanaugh from the U.S. Army. He wrote a 2-page PDF. It's called 300-Word Strategic Education. It is a fantastic, I won't say it's kind of like a cheat sheet, but what it is, it's about reduction, being able to reduce ideas into a couple of words. He takes all these military thinkers and just boils them down to their essence. And I think that right there is a really important point in being able to write. It reminds me of Johnny Cochran during the OJ trial. If the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Get to the point, make it sound sexy, make people remember it. But that's the goal of reduction. In fact, I think one of the best things, if you want to really practice reduction, if you pull up TiVo or DirecTV and you see a movie online, you hit info and it's got the one-liner, synopsis, that to me is a fantastic exercise in learning how to reduce. So, what are you writing about? What's your subject? What's your theme? I've asked people that and it'll take a minute for them to tell me. Boom, wrong. You lost me. If you're going to write, you got to get down to the point, almost like an elevator pitch. You got to know what's your problem statement. And it's got to sound good. Like, wow, that's true. So, for chaos, the one thing that I've realized is most people, be it in the military or the private sector, are not prepared for chaos. And yet it's the one thing that we all experience. So guess what I'm writing about? That really is my problem statement. Now, there are other resources you could use, again, for your content. If you know your content, you know the problem you're trying to solve. Again, in my case, I've read biographies. I read one called Boyd, about John Boyd. Robert Coram is a fantastic. It is an absolutely fantastic biography. My God, the book is written. I'm gonna say it's big. I don't know, 600, 700, 800 pages. It's written. I swear to God, I feel like the author had 10 people helping him. It's so much content, so much substance goes to this man's life. And by the way, John Boyd was one of the premier military thinkers of the 20th century. He was a real disruptor. God, I should do a bio on him. In fact, I interviewed one of his proteges or acolytes, I should say, on the previous podcast about when Chet Richards on the Mission Command series, a fantastic biography. But the biography was all about chaos. This guy's whole theory, the OODA loop, really helps serve chaos. In fact, during my interview with Chet Richards, I even made an observation about the OODA loop dealing with chaos. He said I was right on. So again, confirmation. I'm confirming I'm on the right path. Another book I've read, Order in Chaos by Hermann Balk. This was a German general, one of the best German generals of World War II. And for all you guys and gals out there, the Germans were known to have really, really great tactical and operational level commanders. This guy, Order in Chaos, I got the book, but I just got to tell you though, again, when I talk about this whole process, it can be challenging, but also be fascinating. I downloaded, oh gosh, it must have been, I'm not kidding, 200 to 300 page transcripts of Balk and Mellifin, two German generals. And back in the 1979 or the really, really early 80s, the U.S. Army hired these guys to come out and do kind of workshops for senior military leaders, because who's our enemy? The Soviet Union. Who do the Nazis fight? The Soviets. So they brought in the Soviets' adversary, and they learned from them. So I'm reading transcripts from these generals, and John Boyd was in the damn room, even asking questions. It is a fascinating, fun, interesting exploration. So just this in itself was doing research. And again, a lot of things I've been saying, a lot of things I knew intuitively, but I was not able to articulate. There are a lot of these guys have said it before. They've done it before. And the other thing is I've used is behaviors. As you know, I do behavioral profiling as a part of my business, part of my work, whether it's in coaching, on the strategy work, or even workforce development. Behaviors play an enormous role in chaos. So again, I'm now leveraging an element which I have not seen yet in the topic of chaos. So again, this is a competitive edge or competitive advantage on my part if I can balance this. So far, I've talked about the military. I got behaviors. I have some business books I have notes for. I would tell you though, with content, I have some quotes. I mean, I have some sources, but a lot of this is just what I've made up out of my head. That sounds horrible, but I've devised it. I think I've originated it. So I'm hoping I have. That's why I'm making sure that no one else has done this. I'm just mentioning this content because the content, again, helps you articulate what you probably already know, but you haven't spoken. It also helps you confirm that you are on the right path. But what happens though if you have an idea and you find someone else has written about it? Do you write about it? You gotta figure out if you're going to take that, if you're going to invest the time, effort to put something out that which has already been said. So that's something you got to really balance. With that, okay, let me. Here's the final part of this podcast. I'll talk about my process. I mentioned to you before that I take notes at nighttime on my phone. I shoot them. God, I probably have title chaos dash level 1 dash level 2 dash strength 1 strength 2 control whatever. I email myself these little nuggets in the mornings. I wake up, I get my coffee, I pull up the screen, I take some of the stuff from my email, I put it on one sheet, and I'll say 10/31/22 Halloween 2022. Here are my notes for the day. And what happens is I can either add on to some of those ideas, or I copy and paste and plug them in, or I don't do that. I might do that in the next couple of days, and I'm already on a particular chapter. Now, okay, let me go into the process here. So right now I have individual chapters. I created an Excel sheet. I think I have around 20 or 21 chapters, 90,000 words. And again, I keep count by with the Excel sheet. And I go chapter by chapter. trying to clean it up. Now, here's the thing. One thing you got to realize in writing, and something that I realized is your brain has two modes. And one is for editing and one is for creating new ideas. And in fact, if you're interested, I've read that if you want to expand or clean up or edit existing material, you drink caffeine. That does something to the brain, and it helps your focus on that particular type of focus, that type of mindset. If you want new ideas, and you drink a beer or two, and believe it or not, it actually works. So, yeah, I don't know what it is, but you got to know what your brain is that day, and you'll feel it. There have been days like I'm going to create something new, sit down, and I'm like, oh my God, nothing's coming out, and I got to finish this chapter. So I'll flip it to editing. Now, here's the challenge, though. Here's a real challenge. At least it's for me. I have little patience. And this is why this book really has become chaos to me, because I have a hard time sticking to one chapter at a time. I have a very hard time. I spent 1 week on one chapter and it really didn't require it. So what I do is I jump around a lot. And by jumping around a lot, it's patchwork. And when it's patchwork, I'm not finishing anything. This has been really, really distracting to me. So I've actually applied my lessons of military planning to the writing, and I've identified a section. My book is divided into it's really 3 sections: chaos, the chaos model, and control factors. Those 3 sections have in them, they could be 4 or 5 chapters. It could be 10 to 15. But I now have a 3 big chunks, and they actually have a hierarchy of all that stuff. There are 4 chapters. My chaos model, which I call the decisive point. It is the most important thing in the entire book, because what I'm doing is I'm putting objective criteria to chaos. I'm actually explaining it in detail with, minus the subjective feeling element to it. So I'm really trying to put concreteness to it. If I can finish those 4, then I now have clarified exactly what chaos is, and everything else really should fall into place. So I've mostly done that. But what I've found is I've gone through and now created that strength scale, which is almost like the reverse of the chaos scale. And now I have to go back to the chaos and reorganize some elements. But the point is, I got to the core element first. What is chaos? Really, what is, and how do you measure it? And once that is answered, then everything else falls in place. And that's a big thing, because originally I was not doing that. I was just scatterbrained. I mean, I'm still kind of scatterbrained, but that's just been a big challenge. And the other thing is, again, it's probably another challenge, but you got to be aware, there is no such thing as perfection. You got to write what, if it's good, good. Stephen King says this in his book on writing, that when he writes his books, again, he doesn't do business books, he does fiction, which is a wholly different beast. When he writes it, if I remember correctly, he puts the manuscript in a desk and lets it sit for 6 weeks. Doesn't look at it, doesn't even think about it. And what happens is he comes back to that manuscript with a new mind, totally clear, objective. You've seen it with a new set of eyes. That is something I have failed to do. I have not done that. I have been so glued to this. I might take 3 or 4 days. I might take a week off. If I'm with clients, I don't have time. But when I'm not stepping back, when I'm too engrossed in it, I become so biased, and I start cutting things which probably don't need to be cut. So here's the thing: create this monster, create this. It's Halloween. Create this beast. It's got some fat on it. Fine, just keep it. Once this manuscript is done, let's say it's 90,000 words. Fine. Let's say it's 100,000. Fine. Get it done. Let it sit. Come back. Clean it. Shave it. Get to the point. Remember, spy the line. Get to the point, and then after that, you got your. I think you got a good manuscript. And then what happens after that is, once my manuscript is done, I send it to my agent. My agent does both editing And what's really fascinating is she goes out and pitches your book to major publishers. So what I've been talking to you about here is the whole creative element. But there's also a back element. Remember the James Brown, it's not show business, it's show and business. There is a business element to this, people. First of all, major publishers. First of all, I'd ask you, would you even want a publisher? I want a publisher. To me, it has credibility. But if you're going to use a publisher, you got to realize that publishers won't look at you without a minimum of 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. Minimum. That's right. You're going to have 10,000 followers. You have to have a social media footprint. The fact is, these publishers, to my knowledge, to my understanding, that you have to be vetted, that they want to know that you're the real deal. And because again, it's all about their ROI. They got to break even. They at least break even. They got to know that they put your book out there, that you have people who are going to buy it. So if you're writing, I have a marketer working right now. I have my agent. So I have things have been in the works for 9 months now, getting followers, getting viewers, doing everything I can to show that, I'm a presence out there. And I got to put videos. That's why I got my YouTube channel. I put videos out. I get some blogging, not enough blogging, but I had to do all these elements to ensure that when the book is ready, when we go to the publisher, I have done everything in my power to make sure that I can hit a home run when I get there. I want to make it, I want a bidding war on this book because I think I can get it. It's a good topic. I'm a decent writer, and we'll see. So that right there is the chaos in chaos. Yeah, I would say this, after 4 years of writing this, remember 4 years, 3 transitions, in the past 9 months, I've been really serious about it. But that's only because after, again, the evolution, I've realized what I'm writing about. I really realized it, and I'm happy, very happy with it. I think it's an exciting topic, chaos. The fact that I can bring objectivity to it, measure it, show you the impacts, show you different levels, and how to gain strength in it. That I could put this together, I think that is a interesting type of topic. And by the way, one thing that I've done to verify is I go and talk about it. I have friends, I've discussed the book, I've walked them through my process, and not this, but I've walked them through my thesis, and the reception I get is, at first, confusion. It's a lot of moving pieces, but I've broken it down to I've reduced it to its essential elements, and this is what it means. Boom, 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 boom. And I've had people say, wow, oh my God, yeah, oh, totally. Oh yeah. That's the kind of ahas I'm looking for. That to me confirms I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path, and that this is the right journey. So that is my story. Again, this is pre-manuscript. I'm sure going to be a lot more fixes to it, but I'm very happy. I have no issue, no challenges of content. I have challenges of organization and cleaning it up into something coherent. There are a lot of moving pieces in this thing, and I'm doing my best to just reduce it to its minimum. But I want people to read a chapter and like, oh my God, that was great, but I want to read it again. That's what the kind of thing I'm looking for. And one thing I had not, I don't think I've really mentioned is, am I expecting to sell 1 million copies? No, I'm not. I'm expecting if 10 people buy this, fine. But those 10 people sign checks, it was all worth it. So that's my story, the chaos in chaos. If you're interested, contact me. If, you got Kevin at blackmarketleadership.com. Check out more of my podcast. Check out my videos. I got some great interviews, man. Colonel Douglas McGregor. Oh, I've been reading his books to support me in my knowledge of chaos. Michael Scheuer, the CIA guy who was chasing bin Laden. Carol Roth, I've been very fortunate to interview some really, really smart people. I hope you'll check it out. Please subscribe on the YouTube channel. Much appreciated. And if you want some topics, email me and I'd be glad to talk about them. In fact, I have a Restream, might do some live sessions. There's some lawyers out there who watch some of these pre-taped or even live sessions with jury, or I don't know if it's juries, judges, and plaintiffs and defendants. And boy, they get a lot of engagement. It looks fun. I'm not sure I could do law though, but I might do some movies. We've done movies before. But with that, people, I want to again thank you so much for participating. It's been a lot of fun. It's been fun talking about it. Man, talking about the book only just increases my angst to get this thing out there. It's gonna happen. So with that, I hope you all have a great Halloween, and I will talk to you later. See ya. Bye. If you like this content and want to hear other things like it, head on over to the website at blackmarketleadership.com. That's blackmarketleadership.com. There you can subscribe to the podcast, and you can even create a free members profile